Yo, this is the Ancient Texan. So, the question I'm going to throw out to you is when Russia drops a nuclear weapon, probably a strategic nuclear weapon used on the battlefield, what is going to be our response in the United States? Well, the first reaction, I'm sure, is most people think that couldn't happen. It would be too horrible. One nuclear weapon could lead to 10, could lead to 100, and could lead to every major city in the United States disappearing. Disappearing at least as a habitable place to live. It could mean the disintegration of America, perhaps even wider. It could lead to the disintegration of America, Europe. Maybe it would be a shorter list to say who would not be affected. And we don't have that discussion because we don't think it's going to happen, because no sane person would do that. But what we have to ask is, are we dealing with a sane person? Are we dealing with someone that would attack and kill other people and not care what happens? I think Putin's already answered that question. And I think we have not got the message. I think we don't deal with the seriousness of what's happening because by not dealing with it, it's not going to happen. By not thinking about it and giving it due time, we can talk about other stuff. About whether we should send them MiGs. How much money should we send them? How much equipment? How much should we help them? How much can we afford not to help them? But I don't think we're spending much time with diplomacy. It's kind of, the attitude is America will push them into doing what we think is right. Then we have to ask ourselves, is Putin the kind of person that gets pushed? I think there's different kind of bullies in life. As a little kid in a Hispanic neighborhood, I learned how to deal with bullies. I mostly avoided them. But then sometimes they'd find me anyway. And I'd have to make a choice. Is this the kind of bully that if I stand up to him and aggressive, that he'll back off? Or is he a kind of bully that will not only push back, but come and hunt me down later and make my life miserable? And when I identified that this is one of the bad kind of bullies, I was really careful to avoid them. To just kind of disappear one way or another. Well, I think we're treating Putin like he's like the second level bully, that if you stand up to him, he just kind of withers and goes away, or he doesn't press his advantage in size and meanness. But I think we have the third kind of bully with Putin. I think he's the kind of guy, if you stand up to, he just resolves to fight harder and to find a way to hurt you. And I don't think he's going to play by our rules. So, right now, everybody's kind of going through their life like nothing's happening. We're pretending that the bad thing can't happen to us because it's just too bad to be true, and therefore it's not going to happen. Well, that's not the way bad things are avoided. Pretending like Putin is kind of a second-rank bully that's going to back down because he's got some resistance, I think it's a really bad assumption. And if Putin's the kind of bully that I'm thinking he is, level 3 bully, who has evil intentions, he has the ability to hurt you, and he has a pride that won't let him back down. If Putin is really one of these kind of bullies, which, using all my experience with bullies as a kid, I think he's the kind that the more you hurt him, the more determined he will be to hurt us. And if we're in this downward spiral of pushing him, thinking he's going to give in and break at some moment, I think that is wishful thinking. I think if he starts to lose on the battlefield, he'll bring out a local nuke and level some city, and in the middle of the battle in Ukraine, Kherson, Odessa, he'll just flatten that city. Or he'll take a nuclear weapon that's smaller and explode it right in the middle of the Ukrainian group of soldiers. You know, get a company of soldiers and blow away a few thousand Ukrainians all at one time, and local citizens. I think that's where Putin will go. And I think that's kind of already written in the cards. Now the question is, when that happens, what's going to be our response? What is going to be our response? Are we going to use a nuclear weapon on the battlefield? Are we going to invade Ukraine with American troops? Are we going to suddenly try to use diplomacy? Are we going to nuke a Russian city? Are both sides going to lose their cool and push the big button? I think this talk needs to happen. And I think it's a really wishful thinking that nobody's having this talk. We need to be having this talk in the most serious way. I could be just a crazy old man, but I don't think I am. I am old, but I don't think I'm crazy yet. And I think by not thinking about this and talking about what we're going to do, when Putin uses nuclear weapons. I think the likelihood is that we could make some really bad choices if we haven't thought this out ahead of time. This is a contingency that needs to be talked about now. It's crazy believing that just because something is horrible that it can't happen. Crazy crap happens all the time. Our country's full of people with guns and crazy shit going on, and other people defending them. And other people will defend Putin and his own government when he does it. There's plenty of crazies to go around. And even talk about it, I'm a crazy. But I'm a crazy that wants to think about things before just act like it's impossible to happen, ignore it, and then it does happen, and we haven't thought it through, and we just react. I do that kind of shit. I get emotional and explode. I get emotional and do stupid stuff. And other people on the planets with a lot more power than I have, when I do that, it's an angry call or angry words. My youth, it might be an angry punch or throw a rock at somebody. But I'm not the only crazy out there. And I'm a crazy that's trying to work on himself and not do stupid things. But I think our country, our government, our military, our president, our Congress are full of crazy people that will demand we do something more crazy than Putin does. So I don't think it's so crazy that I start asking people to start discussing if the unspeakable happens, what the hell's going to be our reaction? This is the ancient Texan asking you to consider what we're going to do. Get this idea out there. I don't care if my podcast goes anywhere or my YouTube, but I definitely think this conversation I'm talking about should happen. And I think you should help me make it happen. This is the Ancient Texan. Hoping you have a good day. Sorry to inconvenience you with this bad stuff, but it's important. Have a good one if you can.